All right, and I think we are. Sounds like me.
Yes.
All right, I think we are live. I'm hoping this is showing up under my Dark Lord of Optics Facebook page. I just made an unsuccessful attempt to go live under a different account, which was counterproductive because this is supposed to be a wrap-up of the first day of SHOT Show. And I have a gnawing suspicion that the people who want to see that are the ones who follow the Dark Lord of Optics part. So I hope that this works better now. This is my first time trying to do Facebook Live, so forgive me for the mishaps and all the weird things I'm probably going to say and hopefully not do on video. Alright, that having been said, Stan and I spent a fair amount of time today at SHOT Show. I had just a couple of meetings here and there, but most of the time we went and looked at different brands. It was a very full day and we covered at best 10% of the show, so tomorrow is going to be a fair bit rougher. Before I start sort of going over the brands, that the companies that we visited and what I thought was memorable from the booths that we saw, I want to mention a few people that I really only see once a year at SHOT that I'm very happy to see. Right? It's aside from the fact that I like looking at new products, it's also kind of nice to see people you're really friendly with and you would have been spending a lot more time with had they lived closer to you, right? So this is our one opportunity. Obviously, it's Jim Fisher, Big Jim Fish, on Sniper's Hide and on AR15.com. Jim's a good friend. We've known each other for quite a few years. And aside from the fact that I like Jim, also his opinion is valid. He's seen a ton of glass. He's careful. He is deliberate. So walking around the show together with them, exchanging ideas is important, right? And it's if I say something stupid, he calls me out on it, and I have an opportunity to think about it, reconsider. It was really nice to run into Doug Paymer of Camerland, New York. Go have a drink with him last night. Doug is good people. I talk to him on and off. Try to do so more frequently, right? And at the companies that I visited, some of these people I've been talking to for a decade. I was thinking about it. My first SHOT Show was 2008 in Orlando, right? When Vortex was just starting out. I was talking to Sam Hamilton of Vortex today about it. That was amazing. You know, it's been 11 years, right? 11 years ago, I showed up at a SHOT Show and said, holy cow, this is cool. Well, fast forward 11 years, and here we are. David Sen, now of German Sport Optics, and prior to that, of a few other places. I'll talk to that a little bit. It's really nice to see these people, to have this continuity year after year. All right, that having been said, so if you have questions about anything I saw, anything I mentioned, any of the brands I mentioned, please write a comment. It's a little small, but I should be able to see it. And I will kind of go on a stream of consciousness sort of way. If a question pops up, I'll stop and try to answer it. If I can't answer it, I'll try to answer it tomorrow. All right, so let's start. I have a few notes here and there. Let's start with Tangent Theta. Tangent Theta is, so I don't hide the fact that I really like Tangent Theta scopes. It's I sort of know the lineage where they come from. I have a reasonable idea of the people who put the company and the product together. And all from the stuff that I've seen so far, I think these are the best overall precision scopes on the market. Doesn't mean that the other precision scopes are not good. It just means that I really like these overall. Optics are superb, turrets are superb. It's a tactile experience, right? You go to Tangent Theta booth and start twisting the knob, right, and you get your weird zen out of it. Aside from the weird zen, they finally had a product with the new Gen 3 XR reticle in it. I've seen the drawings before, but I have not yet seen it in a product. So I got a chance to go and look. And it is a nice reticle. It's not too busy. It's probably one of the better modern reticles I've seen to date. Okay. Another thing with Theta is that they've been working on their Hunter scope. It's a simplified version of 3-15M scope, and I think they're pretty close. It sounds like they have one less technical hurdle left to overcome. It's something to do with how the turrets, there's this little cover that spins freely, how the turrets go up and down. And it appears that they're close. So I think sometime this year we will likely see production variants. It was nice to see Andy Weber, the president of Theta. We always have a nice conversation, always learn something, and he tolerates my unsolicited feedback with surprising grace. Right, so that's Theta. GPO, German Precision Optics. Nice to see Mike and Suruj. They had their sort of a coming out party last year. This year they had a tabletop at the next pavilion. I assume next year they'll have a proper booth. I did a little video with Suruj on a GPO, so we'll see what they do. I looked at one of their scopes. I liked it a fair bit. But the scope I looked at was a 1:8x24, very nice general purpose scope. And the one I looked had a comparatively dim illumination module. I looked at the production one today, and it is a fair bit brighter, so I may need to revisit that. It sounds like for this year they want to push a little bit more their Passion 3X, somewhat less expensive in the $500-600 range product line. They've got a nice, a 6-18 scope with exposed turrets and everything. A little bit more of a hunting varmint type. Thank you, Alice. I like my shirt too. Hunting varmint type product. GPO is sort of an interesting company, and a lot of the people who are involved with it have been involved with other well-known brands for a while. So I expect that their presence will grow. I think they're growing really well in Europe, and I think they're making good inroads in the US as well. Also working around the next pavilion with the new brands. There are a few interesting things, right? I ran into this company called Brenton. These are hunting ARs. ARs, right? Except these guys re-engineered it, made everything tighter, smaller. Now it's not mil-spec compatible for the most part anymore, because they make a complete rifle and sell it to you, but the handguard is different. They do this hydrographics that are pretty interesting. The rifles are well built, they look good, they seem accurate. They designed their own single stage trigger that's adjustable. It goes from 3 to 6 pounds, I think. I tried that trigger. If you like single stage triggers, it's pretty impressive, right? Ran purely by accident, and this tiny little company called Enhanced Shooting Systems, called Tactical Sidekick. In a show full of fairly high-tech stuff, this is a sort of a low-tech type of thing, but very clever. It's basically a type of a very high-friction mat you can put on top of a shooting bench. There's a lip there where you can use to put your bipod on, and it doesn't slip and gives enough resistance to do pretty decent light to medium level loading of your bipod for people who shoot off of concrete surfaces and stuff like that. It's a really nice, simple way of being able to have a somewhat slightly more secure shooting position. And they have a few things, kind of a hand strap so that you have a non-slip grip on a rifle, and a few other things. But basically they have a website, www.tacticalsidekick.com. It's simple, but I played with it. It's kind of effective, obviously, and I like these kind of things, right? It's just a simple trap. A simple mousetrap can still be a better mousetrap, so I like that kind of stuff. And the guy who was chatting, he's a retired lieutenant colonel from the army, so it was nice to chat with him and thank him for his service. Also, in the next pavilion, I ran into this company. I haven't the foggiest freaking idea how to pronounce their name. It's a Canadian company called BLKLBL. Good luck pronouncing that one. But the product is so... Yeah, see, I'm at a loss for words. How often does that happen? The product is interesting, right? It's an AR AR-15 handguard, AR-15 and AR-10, they have different models, with a fully integrated bipod that cans and does all sorts of other things, and it folds in and nothing sticks out, right? It's heavier than a standard handguard, but if you consider the weight of a standard handguard with an external like Atlas bipod, this thing I think is a little bit lighter, sturdy, doesn't interfere. I'm really impressed. It's a very clever way of doing things and should fit most barrels. Like I don't think it will fit the Dracos, so the really thick barrel that I've got on one of my AR-10s, but for all the other ARs I have, I think it would work fine. So for precision AR, an AR designed to be a varmint or something like that, this is a really interesting solution. It's one of the products I'm going to try to get my hands on and see if I can work it out and see if this bipod is as good as I thought it was. Height adjustable, cant rotation. Just a clever idea. Once again, it's a better mousetrap, and I like this kind of stuff. Alright, so Stan, what else did we see at the next pavilion? Stan is not listening. Alright. Let's see. Photonis, company using more or less thermal sights, night vision type of company, using L3 cores. I'm not sure how consumer it is, but they have some sort of French-made image intensifier tubes that looked really good and really clean. They have an interesting night vision binocular that I thought was a good idea. Ran into another new company called Omega Rangit. I'll post up some pictures on Instagram later. Really sort of an integrated electronic laser rangefinder and day-night camera, like a digital night vision type camera, integrated into one thing that sits on top of a Picatinny rail. You can have it on a handgun, on a shotgun. Kind of interesting solution. I'm a little bit mixed on it because what you've got in the back is just a screen, and the screen was what, maybe 2 by 3 inches or so. You can see it fairly clearly, but there is no projection optics, right? So on typical rifle scope, when you look through it, your eye is supposed to be relaxed, like you're looking out at infinity. Well, when you have a physical screen in front of you, you're focused on that, right? It's transitioning your eyes from looking far away at whatever you're shooting at to looking very close at the screen in front of you causes fatigue. So I'm not convinced that necessarily a good solution, but I like to see these kind of devices. I like people pursue greater integration, and maybe it'll work better than I think it will. Who knows? All right, so that was Omega Shooting Systems, and I think that's all I had from the next pavilion. So then we headed over to the tactical booths and the main show floor. One interesting visit was a company called US Optics. It used to be down in Southern California, not too far from where I live, but a year or so ago, a little bit more, they moved to Montana. It sounds like the move has been more or less completed, and they are stabilizing production, making pretty nice scopes. Some newer ones, some are just repackaged version of older designs. They're just cleaning up, making a little bit more modern. I don't know if you can see this, probably not. This is kind of an imprint of a reticle on a transparent piece of plastic. They've got this new simplified tree reticle called JVCR. I saw it drawing online somewhere. Now I saw it in the scope. It's comparatively sparse compared to some modern designs, but I think it's very, very workable. Primary aiming point is comparatively free of obstructions. The tree is not very large, but very usable. It is every 2 mil steps, but every 1 mil there's still several dots. So you have, I think, gives you enough reference points. And honestly, I liked it a fair bit. Another new thing that I saw with the US Optics, so they have their 1-8 that was there last year, so the SVS scope, which I thought was a very decent design, 34mm tube. They had a new front focal plane 1-6 rifle scope that is designed by US Optics, made elsewhere, somewhere in Asia, using some mix of parts from different places. And the front focal plane 1-6 looked decent, and it should have MSRP, I think, of around $700-800, which for US Optics is not a whole lot. And the gentleman I was talking to was quite adamant that the scope is designed by a USO, right? That's sort of a biggie. It looked pretty decent. as decent as I can tell inside a convention center. But if it proves out to be good, that's going to drive some serious volumes toward US optics. And one interesting thing he said, even without me pushing him too much on it, all of the quality control, etc., is done in Montana by US optics, meaning every scope that comes in from their manufacturing partner gets tested and checked by the manufacturer in Montana. That's sort of a big deal, right? So QC cannot produce a better scope, but better QC can produce a more consistent scope, right? And that way they can really control the consistency of the product. So like I said, that was nice to see. What else? Let's see. We visited EOTech. So EOTech really made a splash last year with their ultra short 5-25 by 50 rifle scope. They were a little bit late to deliver it. It sort of happens with new products, but now they have, and it sounds like they filled all of their back orders, and they are catching up. Now there's some product in stock, and it seems like production is consistent. So this year I'm gonna get my hands on one and do a thorough test. It's a very, very short scope, which I generally find interesting. The turrets felt good, quite good, much better than the prototypes I saw last year. And one other appealing thing was that the thing was mounted on Q's the Fix, easily my favorite bolt-action rifle on the market today. So I went over and chatted with them, told them, yeah, I've got that same gun, except mine is serial number 003, not 363 like yours. So we got a laugh out of that. Nothing else very new with EOTech. Some more variants. Some more variants with the holographic sights. Some green ones. Some additional external color patterns and sorts of stuff. The big deal for me with EOTech was the precision scope. All right, moving on. Where are we? Nikon. I'm sort of gonna go on a record that I have no idea what Nikon is doing in the sporting optics world. I don't see much of a strategy. I can't figure out what they're pursuing. I don't know what to make out of what I saw. They're clearly going through some sort of a line consolidation, right? There are fewer product lines now. They took out Monarch 7. Monarch 5 is now their highest brand. But none of them are illuminated, which is just weird in the modern marketplace. And their front focal plane scope, they haven't figured out any new, more modern reticles, right? So for a year, everybody has been beating them up, get a 3 reticle going. They're not doing it. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know what to make out of it. Like, Nikon is just a mystifying company. For me, I don't know. That's just it, right? So I'm kind of carefully watching what they're doing, but not make any moves to look at any of their new products because I haven't the foggiest idea what they're going to do with it next. All right, that's Nikon. Since we're talking about mystifying companies, let's talk about Zeiss. Once again, I can't figure out if they can tell their ass from an elbow. But as far as rifle scopes go, I don't think they can. I've never seen an iconic company destroy their brand equity with such ease and speed as Zeiss is doing right now. The V4 and V6 scopes made in Japan. V4 looks... It's a nice word. Stan, what's a nice word? Nice way of saying looks like shit.
Oh, you got it.
I guess Stan thinks it's appropriate. Even the really, really fancy V8 scope does not look all that great, especially considering how good the competition has become, right? The Swarovski Z8 and the Leica Magnus and the new Blazer is just amazing. It looks amazing, right? And Zeiss V8 is, I don't know what they're doing. On the binocular side, however, they're clearly paying more attention. Maybe they just don't like guns. But the new range-finding binoculars, the Victory RF, are pretty respectable. A ballistic program is reasonably respectable, and I think that is the only European range-finding binocular with ballistic engine that allows you to calculate ballistics beyond 1,000, 1,100 meters. There's some sort of weird-ass European regulation that generally prevents you from going very long range. And of all the ones we've gone and looked at, I went there with Jim Fisher. Zeiss was the only one that was going long range. When I pressed them a little bit on which optical system they're using, they said it's more or less the same thing as the Victra SF binoculars, which is a good thing. Those are really nice binoculars. Okay. But like I said, there's binoculars. I don't see any movement, anything interesting on the spotting scope side. And as I said, I can't figure out the hell they're doing with the rifle scopes. Alright, moving on. Nightforce. Not too many new things. They've got a new reticle, Mil XT. I got a chance to see it in a scope now. I've seen drawings before. It looks better than the Horus reticles that up to now with only 3 reticles that Nightforce had, but it's still a Horus style reticle and it still extends down 20 mils. I still can't figure out why. I should probably do an article on it, a separate video. There are many good reasons to not do that, right? And I asked one of the Nightforce guys there. He was very pleasant, a very nice man. He honestly answered the question, and I think he's just wrong. All right, so I don't know what to make out of it. The 7-35 Nightforce is the Attacker is nice scope. I briefly looked at the second focal plane version of it. Target shooters will like it. I am not one of them, right? So that's not really my thing. Let's see what else. Oh, I stopped by Glock. When I said I like Glock handguns, Jim Fisher walked away in disgust, said we'll meet later. Didn't want to be associated with me when I was drooling over Glocks. Glock has 2 new single stack handguns, 43X and 48. 48 is in the top 3 things on my list to buy once I get out of this godforsaken state. Nice, decent triggers, Gen 5 Glocks, single stack, easily concealable, easy to carry handguns. I like the idea. While we're talking about guns, I stopped by this really interesting company called Franklin Armory. They are known for pushing the envelope a little bit and doing some really unusual things. And one of those really unusual things was what they introduced this year. They introduced this rifle. They call it digit activated. Sort of their way to try to go around the whole semi-auto business. It's a pistol, direct blowback pistol caliber carbine with a heavy dual action trigger. So you have a spring-loaded bolt with a fixed firing pin where you when you pull the trigger, it pushes the bolt against the spring and then releases it, and it fires. The direct blowback moves the bolt back. It strips the cartridge but doesn't fire. And when you pull the trigger, it physically moves the bolt back and then releases it. Kind of like a double action revolver. It's pretty heavy, and this system will not be suitable, I think, for rifle style cartridges, but for 9mm pistol caliber carbine it works okay, but the trigger pull is quite heavy. I don't know how much I like it from a shooter standpoint, but for some parts of the country where you just can't have semi-autos at all, it's kind of an interesting solution, and I really like the ingenuity. So it will be very interesting to see. They're saying it's legal in 49 states, naturally, except for California. Well, no major surprise there. Let's see, what was next? Trijicon. I went and visited Trijicon. Not too many new things. The RMR red dot is new. They've got a 2.0 version of it, somewhat better coatings. Some military branch already adopted it. It's a nice red dot sight. I got to see the new long-range AccuPower scopes, the 4.5 to 30 by 56 and 550 by 56, which to me look more or less the same LOW scopes as the Delta Striker HD. I've seen the reticle drawings before, and they looked not quite right. The line thicknesses looked off and all that. So I went and looked at it live, And live, this looks like a very competent reticle, which still looks fairly decent on low power for the 4.5 to 30 by 56, and for the second focal length 5 to 50, it's a nice thin reticle. I think Trijicon, assuming they will maintain quality control and all that, I think Trijicon will do well with these scopes. They're nice designs. Okay, let's see, where else? Where was I? Swarovski. So Swarovski and Collis were in the same booth, and what was happening with Swarovski and Collis? So Swarovski does this weird thing. They have multiple scope lines. They've got a new Z5 that is a 4 to 12 by 50, and the 4 to 12 by 50 is, unlike the rest of the Z5 scopes, is really compact. It's kind of interesting. I like it. It's an interesting design. And then there is a DS. DS is a $4,500 rifle scope with a laser rangefinder, ballistic engine, and all that built in. It's a pretty impressive piece. It's been out in Europe for a couple of years, so it's sort of a known quantity, but it is new to the US market. So that was nice to see. The only other new things they had was some different packaging and stuff on binoculars and spotters. But one thing that was just really pretty is they did these leather wrapped CL binoculars, and just old world craftsmanship. It was just nice to see. Okay. Right, that was Swarovski. With Collis, they had a couple of new products last year, the K318 and K525. They have been reasonably well covered. They're nice products, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. But Collis has a new red dot sight called Helia RD, something like that. I think it's an OEM product. It looks like the coatings, etc., are done by Collis. Everything else is done elsewhere. Perfectly reasonable compact red dot kind, something you can piggyback on a precision scope or use in a handgun, stuff like that. I kind of liked it. Yeah, see, Leica. For Leica, it's a little bit of a quiet year. They said they're working a bunch of stuff, so next year is gonna have more. One thing that was new, they have the 2800 connected laser rangefinder that can talk to a Kestrel with the built-in ballistic engine and all that. Looked like a good interface, looked like a perfectly legitimate device. I like rangefinders. They always work well for me, and more importantly, every one I've tried has performed to the manufacturer's claims, which is not something I can necessarily say about every other rangefinder manufacturer. Aside from that, there isn't that much new stuff. There is the Leica Tempus that's finally hitting production. It's the comparatively compact red dot sight for using carbines and stuff like that on 22 handguns. I don't think it's rated to sit in a slide of a semi-auto handgun, but it'll work well in other applications. I very briefly tested a prototype many months ago, and I'm gonna do a proper workup on a full production model. Unlike most sights of this type, it has fully nicely engineered aspherical optical surface. I have a little bit of an astigmatism, and to my eye it looks quite good, and it has the least amount of parallax of all the similar sized red dots that I've seen to date. So that I kind of like. I generally like Leica products. I'm very curious to see what they're going to come up with next. Okay, let's see. Leupold. Leupold has a new 7 to 35 by 56 Mark V HD. I'll do another installment of the high-end tactical article sometime this year, and I will include the Mark V HD in there. It looked quite good, and the new VX5 HD 7 to 35 scope also looked quite good. The only other new thing I saw there was a VX Freedom red dot, which is sort of a full-size tube style red dot for about $300, made in US. Looked perfectly respectable, but I'm a precision kind of guy, and the Mark V HD is the thing that I am most interested in from what Leupold was showing. Okay, All right, moving right along. I've got Leupold. So a couple of things that I found really interesting. One, let's talk about Crimson Trace. So Crimson Trace, known for their handgun lasers and stuff like that, has introduced a full line of rifle scopes, red dots, and stuff like that. The reasonable prices from 500 MSRP to about $2,000. So street prices will be somewhat lower. They should be in production about 3 or 4 months. I think they're all made in Japan. The reticles look to be intelligently conceived. Most of the ones I saw were FFP scopes, some compared to unusual configurations, like a compact, moderately inexpensive Japan-made 3-9x40 front focal plane scope, which is kind of cool. It's a full line of scopes, and Crimson Trace guys are saying it's made in their own factory in Japan. So I need to figure out how that relationship works. I wasn't aware of Crimson Trace having a factory in Japan. But scopes look kind of good. I mean, that look decent, right? That it's surprising to see a brand new manufacturer that's never done this kind of stuff before come out with a full line of very respectable looking, well configured, well conceived products with good reticles. I will make sure I get my hands on a couple different ones, representative samples, and put them through their paces and figure out what gives. Then that was one of the very pleasant surprises of the show. Okay, I'll probably need to do a separate video on Crimson Trace. That was kind of interesting. I'm talking to Stan here, making mental notes on what I need to do next. Blaser is sort of a well-known German brand making very high-end rifles and shotguns. They introduced a new rifle scope line, oriented for hunting only. Blaser is part of the same general group as Minox and German Sport Optics, so it was designed by the same basic people, but the optical system and Blaser rifle scopes is not shared by anything else. The way they approach reticle illumination is extremely clever, and I was hugely impressed. These are very expensive products, around $3,000 or more. Beautifully executed from the fit and finish to the tactile feel to the turrets to the controls, and on the 1:7 all front focal plane, which I like, and on the 1:7 the illuminated reticle changes sizes, right? So it can be 4 MOA on low power, and I think 1 MOA or 2 MOA on higher power, but it's just absolutely nuclear bright, ultra wide field of view, really nice. Like I said, they're aiming for hunters. I think once 3-gun people will figure out this thing exists, Blaser will not be able to keep it in their shelves even at $3,000. I'm gonna try to get my hands on one. I make no promises because I've had a pretty decent conversation with a couple of people there, but the guy who I think is in charge, well, I don't think I fit his image of a gun writer, let me put it this way, but it is what it is. I'm gonna give it a shot and see how it goes. There are also a couple of higher magnification models that looked really impressive, extremely well controlled flare, excellent reticle illumination, just nice, just really nice designs. Okay, and last but absolutely definitely not least, the last brand we saw, I think, did I cover everything? Yeah, it was Schmidt Bender. And there are a couple of interesting things with Schmidt Bender. One is their new reticle called the Grid Reticle or Grid Square, whatever this name is. I've seen the drawings of this thing before and walked away deeply unimpressed, right? And now that I've seen it in the scope, I did a complete 180. The reticle is well executed. It doesn't obstruct your view at lower power. It's not extremely prominent. I liked it. I think it was really well done. And equally importantly, the dual focal plane 1:8 by 24 is now finally in production and with a new reticle, and a type of reticle I've been begging people to make for close to a decade now. A small 6mm radiant tree in the front focal plane that disappears from view on 1 power. Had a nice chat with them. I'll be looking to do some testing and reviews on both of these, and I'll be talking about them more. A few years ago, Schmidt Bender went through a bit of a rough patch. They seem to have righted the ship. I avoided the product primarily because I wanted to see some other reticles. I don't have that much time, so I'm selective. These two are right up my alley, and I'll need to make sure I get my hands on them and take a closer look. Anyhow, I think that covers everything we saw today. I'm looking for business cards to see if there's anything I missed. No, I think that's it. Thank you for watching. We'll save the video. It'll be plastered on Instagram, so we'll be able to review it and see if I missed anything. Post a comment. I'll try to respond to it tomorrow when I do a day 2 summary.